Nutrition seems to be a modern paradox. We don't seem to be able to create any kind of social understanding about what to eat or the effects of what we eat. There are some things about food that are glaringly true. One is that the modern diet is killing us, and most people seem to be okay with that. Obesity rates have now passed the 50% mark in America and in several other countries, and yet the junk food industry continues to roll out toxic products to fill the social hunger. And what about those who recognize the problem? Well, they're faced with a bewildering range of diets, nutritional products, and supplements that claim to produce health, and that's what everybody desires. 45 million Americans go on a popular diet every year. 50% of those diets are designed to crash off weight and are usually harmful to long-term health. Interestingly, in a recent survey, it was found that half of those using radical weight loss diets were doing it on the suggestion of their doctor. What's going on? How did we get into this sorry mess, and how do we get out of it? The problem partially is built into the system. Nutritional science is a new discipline. We know that the health effects of foods have been studied for centuries, but the modern study is very recent. The first vitamin was only isolated in 1926. That discovery set in motion the desire to identify all of the special chemical constituents of food. And this was particularly aimed at discovering potential deficiencies. That's been the driving force ever since. It's a question of what's missing. Nutritional science has been the search for the silver bullet. It sees food as a chemical delivery system. Reductionist nutrition immediately began to learn how to artificially manufacture vitamins, how to fortify food, and sell manufactured foods as superior to natural whole foods. Fear campaigns about nutritional deficiency were a driving force, and still is. Parents became worried that they might lack calcium or iron or vitamin C in their children. Consumers were running in fear of something they had no way of identifying except through advertising. It was a bonanza. And it made it seem that food manufacturers were actually making food better, more nutritious. This is the same mentality that exists even in the so-called health food industry. It's only in recent times that the corruption of the food industry and nutritional science have been seriously challenged. In the past 50 years, some rebellious doctors and epidemiologists have exposed the myths of our food choices. The old stories based on commercial profit have begun to crumble, and a more comprehensive understanding of nutrition has started to emerge. This new understanding embraces the biological and emotional influences on our food chain choices, the role of diet in prevention and the reversal of disease, and the environmental impact of what we eat. The macrobiotic approach to understanding food has played a major role in this revolution. Now some may say that that's an exaggeration, but no. The macrobiotic community were pioneers in the natural foods industry. First macrobiotic retail shops became a template for hundreds of small shops all over America and eventually in Europe. They were among the major promoters of organically grown foods, the introduction of traditionally fermented foods from around the world, including products like miso and shoyu and natto, and foods like tofu, which are now found in all supermarkets. The introduction of seasonal eating and local eating. They're from macrobiotic teachers and cooking teachers. The introduction of cooking for the seasons. And the acknowledgement that a healthy gut environment was a primary force for good health a good decade before it was talked about seriously in scientific circles. The specific foods for health and healing were also introduced. See, most people start their inquiry into macrobiotics with diet. This is natural, since preventing disease, establishing and maintaining health, or recovering from illness are important and urgent life issues. There's increasing information regarding the role of diet as a causal factor in the creation of serious illness. That closely conforms to the programs outlined in macrobiotics over the past 5 decades. It could be said that science finally caught up with us. Macrobiotic dietary principles have been developed and adapted consistently since the introduction of the philosophy of macrobiotics into the United States in the 1950s by George Oshawa. The ideas that are the foundation of macrobiotics are a unique fusion of Japanese folk medicine, selective science, and what Osawa described as his version of Chinese medicine. These concepts reflect physical, environmental, and social observations from over 5,000 years of traditional Chinese and Japanese folk medicine. Although the philosophy bears little resemblance or relationship to Western nutritional science, the conclusions are remarkably similar. When the diet associated with macrobiotics comes up, it's usually associated with what is called the standard macrobiotic diet. This way of eating is not a diet in the strict sense. It's a way of understanding the potential effects of foods through a range of factors such as nutritional density, plant morphology, environmental factors, and the origin and traditional uses of foods in various cultures. And the classification of foods in this way is a useful tool for approaching a more comprehensive approach to diet. Osawa's student and the macrobiotic movement's prime influencer after his death was Michio Kushi. He developed the standard diet in the early 1980s with assistance from Edward Esco, William Spear, Murray Snyder, and myself. The standard diet was presented to describe general principles to the growing number of people who were seeking help with their health and who were dealing with serious diseases such as cancer and heart disease and a variety of other illnesses. While thousands of people found assistance in recovering their health using variations of the standard diet, the association of macrobiotics and healing is often, I feel, misunderstood. The standard dietary suggestions do not seem so radical now as they did then. It was suggested that healthy diets have whole cereal grains as their foundation, include a variety of vegetables, preferably locally grown and seasonal, whole beans, naturally fermented soy condiments, nuts and seeds, seasonal fruits, and sea vegetables. The suggested volume of different food groups is now seen as questionable in light of experience, but the main elements are the same. Most of the therapeutic diets contain very little oil and no fish. All other animal-sourced foods such as meat, poultry, eggs, dairy foods, as well as refined sugars and food additives, were all considered to be harmful. The application of macrobiotic principles to nutrition is not essentially an attempt to therapeutically correct the symptoms of disease. The macrobiotic approach to eating is focused on assisting the body to recover from the damage of nutritional stress, which is often the result of the modern diet, and then return to a more sensible state of biological balance. In the process of returning to a more balanced state, many people experience a natural recovery of health, and in some cases, a complete remission of serious symptoms. The diet helps the body exercise its own self-healing capacity. The growth of alternative medicine was largely driven by personal experience, not health professionals. The writings of anthropologists, historians, ancient medical texts, and ecological principles had much more effect on the ideas and ideals of the alternative health and healing movement than medical science. Many who had suffered from chronic pain or debilitating symptoms were reporting relief through simple, non-invasive therapies. During those years when macrobiotic teaching was focused on the connection between diet, health, and healing, the Holy Grail was recognition from science. Numerous attempts were made to achieve some level of scientific credibility for our work. Overtures were made by macrobiotic organizations and individuals to universities, independent researchers, and government bodies to take up our cause. Most of these had limited effect or none at all, but the times change. The past 15 years have seen an increased interest in studies regarding diet and disease. There's been a steady stream of new science from both laboratory analysis and epidemiology that shows striking parallels to many macrobiotic dietary concepts. That research has shown a number of things. Among them, that animal-sourced foods such as meat, dairy, and eggs have a causal relationship to diet, including diseases like heart disease, stroke, diabetes, various cancers, and more. It's also shown that there are serious health risks in many processed foods, such as the use of hydrogenated oils, excessive salt, excessive sugar, and artificial flavoring and chemical additives. Also, with animal-sourced and highly processed foods, which can exacerbate or even create inflammatory processes that are seen as the foundation of many diseases. Also shown that whole grains, beans, vegetables, fruits, nuts, and seeds can form the foundation of a healthy diet, and that the distinction of first-class protein is a myth. It shows that a primary influence on health or sickness is due to the environment of the digestive system, the gut biome, and that the foods that we choose have a profound effect on the working of our cognitive functions. And lastly, that the connection between dietary choices and environmental damage is significant. Contemporary concern for the link between environmental health and what we eat has grown to a degree never seen before. The synergy between social movements independent of macrobiotics towards self-sufficiency, organic food, and seasonal eating, and alternative health care were all part of the milieu that supported macrobiotics. Many ideas that were considered alternative have moved closer to the mainstream, and it turns out our focus on human diet as a tool for personal and social development was very accurate. Since macrobiotics is an ecological approach to eating, the present environment must be a primary concern as we move forward. The future of nutrition must include factors formerly placed off to the side. The use of animals raised for meat, eggs, and dairy is a major source of environmental pollution to both water, air, and soil. Using a diet that includes any animal products runs counter to concerns for environmental health. Balance with the environment starts in the kitchen. Macrobiotic practice must not be based on violence. What we do to nature rebounds on us. The threat of global pandemics generated from animal use is a stark reminder of this reality. It's now widely known that about 60% of all human diseases and 75% of all the emerging infectious diseases are zoonotic, which means they originated from animals. Most of these infections come from livestock, including pigs, chickens, cattle, goats, sheep, and camels. The influenzas are believed to have originated after humans began their intensive domestication of animals about 10,000 years ago. An inclusive macrobiotic approach to nutrition must also take into regard the ability of our diets to feed an ever-growing population. It's not acceptable for anyone to go hungry. Our present dietary system is based on waste and economic privilege, and that has to change. Comprehensive nutritional reform must also consider the use of rare foods and the oppression of the millions of people who struggle in their lives to produce dietary treats for the wealthy nations of the world. The footprint of many modern foods must also be taken into account. What's the impact of our food choices on water and soil resources? In the next session of Second Opinion, I will focus on the details of the modern macrobiotic approach to diet, the use of Osawa's yin and yang food classification, and how diet can contribute to a healthy and peaceful planet. Many of the ideas in this series can be found in my latest macrobiotic book, How to Eat Right and Save the Planet, just so you know. Please join Marlene and I in service for a healthy world for humans and non-humans alike. Hope to see you the next time. Thank you for listening.